all the trips that Danielle is going to, the job that Sandra has, the fiance that Stacey has. And we believe that we want those things because we see 200 of it a day. We see 400 examples a day. But if we really took the time out to sit with ourselves and unplug, we realize that we don't even want those things. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode. So in this corner of the internet, I talk about how to heal yourself from the inside so you can become your best self on the outside. So if you feel as if you are on a similar journey, but you do not want to do it alone, why don't you like, subscribe, and comment? So in today's episode, I really want to focus on something that I believe is really paramount for this time of the year. And it is on how to stop chasing illusion and how to align yourself to who you truly are and what you truly want. So I don't know if you have spent months or even years chasing something, whether that be a career, a relationship, or even a lifestyle. But once you finally got it, you felt empty, as if you were running a race, but the finishing line just kept moving further and further away. Society is always telling us that happiness lies in your next validation, or your next promotion, or your next relationship, or your next milestone, and it just keeps telling you to get more and more. So I don't know if you've noticed, or you're going to notice across all social media platforms, and you're going to hear messaging on let's lock in, let's apply pressure, let's go all in. And I was just thinking, but what are we actually applying pressure for? What are we actually trying to lock in to? So many of us are actually living a life that we do not want. A lot of us are actually on the wrong train, knowing that we're not going to like the destination at the end of the trip. But we stay on that train because of what society tells us, because of what our friends say, because of what our siblings say. And we stay on it knowing that we would be unhappy once we get there. I've had so many conversations over the past couple of weeks where people are in industries or in relationships, or they're just doing things for the sake of doing it because it appears a certain way. But what's the point in doing that? What's the point in living a life where you know that you don't want to do it, but you do it just for the sake? So in this video, I'm going to walk you through so you can recognize the things that you may be chasing, but most importantly, how to actually align yourself to what truly matters. So you're probably wondering, what is chasing culture? So chasing culture, for example, is getting a job just because it looks impressive, being in a relationship just for validation. We have all been there. We've honestly all been there. Or living a lifestyle so then you can be looked like, so you can look the part for social media clout, so people can think that you've made it, but realistically is not actually who you are. I have fallen into this chasing culture so many times myself, but I remember a period of my life where I just constantly shop. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fashion babe, I'm a fashionista. I love clothes, I love shopping, I'm a Zara babe, I was online shopping and all of that. But there was a time in my life where I was constantly shopping. I constantly wanted the latest things, the things that just came out. I wanted to always look the part. And in my mind, I just felt as if I looked the part, I'm going to feel like the part. Everyone always says that you dress according to how you want to be seen or where you're going. I felt as if I had the right things, if I looked the part, I was going to feel like enough. I was going to feel as if I made it. So I really got hyped up whenever people complimented me, always telling me that I looked on point, that I looked good, that I'm always like, you know what I mean? Like I'm just always on trend. And in the moment, it validated me. I felt as if like, gosh, like, yeah, I'm probably the best person in, like, best dressed in the room. I felt important. Behind closed doors, I was getting into debt. And I was getting into debt because I wanted to prove a point. I was using those clothes to feel enough. I felt as if people's compliments were going to make me feel enough. I felt as if I always looked the part, I was going to feel successful inside. I was trying to use these clothes to heal an internal wound that I didn't feel, that really was that I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel good enough just on my own. I didn't feel good enough without being this person that looked a certain way. And because of that, I was getting myself into serious trouble just because of that. So I'm going to talk you through some of the signs which you be able to, that you might be able to identify within your own life, that will show you if you are actually chasing. So first is, you are never happy whenever you hit a milestone or you've accomplished something. And sometimes we feel this way because the goals, the accomplishments, the things in which you're actually achieving weren't actually our own. They were given to us. So for so many of us, the trajectory of our lives were already created for us when we were really young. A lot of us were told that we had to be doctors or journalists or engineers before we even had a say. But then we get there, we've got the high paying job, we are directors, we're making moves in our career. But whenever we hit a milestone, whenever we hit an accomplishment, whenever we tick that off, we don't feel any better about ourselves. We don't feel as if we are fulfilled. Second is that you're always comparing yourself to others. You always use other people as your benchmark to how successful you are. And for me, that was one of the biggest things that I really struggled with. I felt good when I was on my own. I felt good when I was in my own little bubble. I felt so proud of myself. But whenever I met somebody else, and whenever I met another woman and she was doing great, or she was confident, or maybe she did the same thing as me, I felt as if I wasn't good enough. I compared myself to her success. I compared my confidence to her confidence. I compared my outcome to her outcome, but I never actually understood it. And it's so many of us are going into a room and we want to be the best in that room. And if we're not the best, we feel really low about ourselves. But we're all here for different reasons. We're all here to be different, to do and be different things. It's like the Bible talks about that we're all one body. One person is the neck, one person's the arm, one person's the feet. Here we are, we might be hands, but we're comparing ourselves to feet. And that's one of the biggest signs, well, definitely for me, that show that I wasn't actually being aligned. The next is that you don't believe that happiness is where you are currently at. And for many of us, I see that, especially within the people that I know. Like if you're single, you don't feel as if you can be happy until you're in a relationship, until you're coupled up, until you have your boo, until you take those pictures, until you post them on Instagram, until everybody knows. You just don't feel as if you're enough. You don't feel happy. You feel as if you're only going to feel fulfilled when you are attached to somebody else. Or it can come in the version of you're not going to feel happy until you hit that next salary bracket. You're on 50k, but you want 80. You hit 80, then you want 100, and you just don't feel good enough until you hit the peak. But often markers are always changing. So many of us don't feel as if we are enough because we're always changing the bar. We're always moving the marker to achieve more, even when we have achieved the things in which we once dreamt of. And fourth is that you ignore your intuition. Oh, I have done this before. I remember getting a job that was an incredible pay, and it had everything that I thought I would want. But I had a gut feeling that it just wasn't the right job for me. I just couldn't pinpoint what it was, but I felt as if it just wasn't the place for me to be. And that's like so many of us. Sometimes we have that gut instinct. We get that gut feeling, we get that instinct, and we say to ourselves, well, the evidence is there. So why do I not feel as if this is the right place or the right relationship or the right environment for me to be? We believe that we need to see the evidence, and we ignore how we actually feel intuitively, because we know that on paper and on the outside, everybody's going to be so impressed by what we are doing, the circles in which we're involved with, and where we are going. But inside, we know that we're not actually supposed to be there. And fifth and last sign is that your body will actually tell you. I don't think that we talk enough about how our body will actually tell us when we're in the wrong place, we're in the wrong relationship, where we're doing the wrong thing. Signs that our body will do is that sometimes we will get hives, sometimes we'll get digestive issues, maybe you'll have sleep issues, maybe you'll just end up being so fatigued. And for many of us, it's gotten to the point where we are developing autoimmune disease because we're in places that we shouldn't be. So many of us are in relationships that everybody's so impressed by. They're just like, oh my gosh, like, wow, this man is amazing. But you know the truth. You know how you feel whenever you're around him. So many of us are in jobs that people are like, wow, I would love to be where you are at. But you know that you don't like it because you're working God knows how many hours. You don't live the life that you want to live, and it's draining you. But we ignore what our body is telling us because of appearance. Yes, he said the right things. He did the right things. He looked the part. He was, on paper, he was great. Even on my paper, he was actually great. What I wanted is what he actually had. But my body knew, and there was something that wasn't right about him. But I continued to stay in that relationship until it got to the point where I just couldn't handle it anymore, because I started to get fatigued. I just started to get anxiety. I started to have panic attacks, and it just wasn't worth it. And for many of us, we're missing the cues of when we're not in the right job or in the right place or in the right friendship groups, because we're not used to the internal system alerting us that we're not in the right place. So part one, I've talked about the signs that will help you to identify whether you are actually chasing. So on to part two, why do we actually chase and not align? Number one, you're not connected to your source. And for me, my source is God, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit. So before anybody had a say, before society tried to brainwash you and tell you what success looks like and tell you what path for you to go and take, God had created you with a specific purpose. He's created you for a specific need to do on the earth. But when we're not connected to him, how do we know if we're actually on the right path? How do we know if we're supposed to go to the left, if we're supposed to go to the right, if we're supposed to go down this path? So many of us are actually doing life blindly and trying to find our own way when there already is a blueprint, but all we have to do is seek God. And when we don't ask him why we were created, why we were put on this earth, you start to seek answers from society, from friends, from family, and you try to look for clues to find out if you're actually going in the right direction. But so many of us are actually taking a right when we should be going left. So many of us are in places that we never should have been because we haven't actually asked him, what are we supposed to do? Maybe you were going in the right direction at one point in your life, but at some point, you forgot to interact with him, you forgot to ask him what the next steps are, and you started to actually go your own way. Yes, we might be achieving good things, we might be achieving great things, but we're not achieving the things in which he had specifically designed for us to do. So for an example, a kettle is made to boil water. It's not made to hold pens, paper, rubbers, and clips. That wasn't its actual purpose. So many of us are actually looking for clues on what to do, who to become through society, through our friends, through our families, because we're not actually asking God what directions we should be taking. And just like the example of the kettle, it's not bad if you want to go and use the kettle and start putting pens and papers and clips in it. But that's not what it was made for, so you're never going to feel fulfilled. And the reason why we shouldn't even be taking advice from society is because society is so lost and flawed already. Society is always telling us to move more, push more, do more, gain more. There's a reason why we are so shocked when a celebrity or someone of influence decides to end their life. And even though it's tragic, the first thing we say to ourselves is that how can they end their lives? They've got the money, they've got the car, they can go anywhere, they've got the finer things. And it's because that we equate all of these possessions with happiness. We equate all of these possessions, these experiences, these things with fulfillment. We think to ourselves that how can somebody that has all of this decide to end their lives? And of course, we'll never know the reason as why too many end their lives. And I'm not bringing this up to be insensitive, but none of us actually asked the real question. Were they actually happy? Were they actually fulfilled? For so many of us, we think that if we have more, if we have no limitations, that if the world was our oyster, if we had everything at our feet, there is no way that we will feel unhappy. But one thing I've noticed, especially looking at celebrity culture, especially looking at people that have so many things, that unfulfillment and happiness can still live in the people with the most wealth. But then you can find great joy and contentment with people who have very little. But society tells us that happiness, again, lies in all of the things and not actually what's within us. 2, we have learned to betray ourselves. So even if you are somebody who does know what you truly want, what career you're supposed to be, what's your actual purpose in life, it's really hard for us to, especially if you are winning, especially if you're successful, if you're doing good in life, it's so hard for us to turn the corner or to realign ourselves when we are being praised, applauded, when we are being clapped for. It's really hard when you have people looking on the sidelines saying, I wish I was you. You have all of the things that I could possibly want. It's really hard when people are envying you because of what you possess or the position in which you're at. We, instead of actually admitting to ourselves that we don't want to be here, we take other people's opinions, other people's praise, and we use that to a form to betray ourselves. Instead of actually admitting to ourselves that we are not happy, that we do not want to be there, we don't actually do that. We tell ourselves to be quiet. For so many of us, when we were younger, maybe we had parents that whenever you wanted to go and tell them if you weren't happy about something, or you needed something, or you wanted something, you were told to be quiet. But now that we are adults, we've actually adopted those same habits. We tell ourselves to be quiet. Whenever we actually have that internal whisper that tells us that we're not in the right place, we're not happy, that this is not what we actually want, this is not what I actually want to do, we tell ourselves to keep quiet. So many of us actually don't know how to spend time with ourselves. For some of us, our relationship with ourselves looked like the relationship that we have with acquaintances. You may not see acquaintances very often, but when you do, you exchange pleasantries. Hi, bye, how's life? So good to see you. And then once that conversation is done, we wave, give a few kisses, and then we say goodbye. Never to see them again for a couple of years. And it's exactly how we treat ourselves. We don't actually spend time with ourselves. We may ask ourselves a few questions here and there. We might sit down with ourselves for 10 minutes. We may actually pay attention to the thoughts that's coming into our minds, but we never actually take the time to ask deep questions. You never actually ask, why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? Am I really happy? If I had 1 week to live, what would I really want to do? What is my legacy? Most of us don't know those questions because we've never taken the time to actually ask ourselves these questions. And the thing about betraying yourself, and I was one of those people that I just didn't know how to sit with myself and be with myself. And this is not to shame anybody who doesn't have an intimate relationship with themselves, because that was once me. And I've come to realize that if you haven't been given the blueprint, if you haven't been taught the tools on how to sit with yourself, how to ask yourself questions, how to sit with your emotions, your thoughts, your desires, then you grow up being somebody who continuously do the same thing. If your parents were one of those people that asked you what you really wanted to do, what you really wanted to be, you will also become an adult that doesn't ask yourself those questions as well. It isn't to actually shame you and say, oh my gosh, like you betray yourself, you're a bad person. But I'm bringing this up because even though you weren't given the blueprint on how to be with yourself or sit with yourself, that does not mean that you can't start it today. When you decide to spend time with yourself and when you decide to actually go after what you want to go and do, it will feel as if you're actually betraying the people who have put these initial ideas in your head in the first place. It will feel as if you are betraying society. It will feel as if you're betraying your parents. It feels as if you're betraying your friends, because you have built your personality, you've built your lifestyle, you've built your values, your core needs based on what other people have told you what success looks like, what happiness looks like, what fulfillment looks like. But when you take charge and tell yourself, do you know what, I want to find out who I truly am. I want to find out who I want to be. I want to find out what life will look like for me in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. When you take the time, when you decide that you're no longer going to hold anybody else's opinions in high regard or higher than your own, that's when you're going to win. That's when changes will be made, and that's when you will slowly start to align yourself to who you truly are and what God has called you to be. And third of all, you lack humility. And I don't know if that's the right sentence or way to phrase it, that you lack humility. So hopefully I will come up with a better line as I'm talking through it. But when I mean that you lack humility, I'm not trying to say that you think you're better than anybody, or that you think you're all of that. What I mean you lack humility is that alignment will ask you to let something go. Alignment will ask you to allow something to die. Alignment will ask you to lay something down. So many of us, especially if we are people please, if we're enablers, if we are people that want to perform or wants to look a particular way, especially when we are achieving and when we're doing well, when we are accomplishing greatness, it's really hard because most of the time alignment will tell you that what you're doing is completely opposite to what you are doing now. Sometimes what alignment will cause you to do is go down a road that will say that actually you're supposed to be doing this, and what you're supposed to be doing might look less than what you are doing now. So for an example, if you are somebody that works in finance, what you've actually been called to do is to become a singer. Initially, it looks as if it's less. You know that a corporate job is, you're going to have security, you're going to get paid a certain amount of money at the end of the month. You know, you're going to go, the critic or whatever person or even society will tell you that why are you going to be a singer? Only like 1% of people actually make it to become somebody. Like, you don't actually have stable income, it's just okay, it's a chaotic lifestyle. It will look as if it's less than what you are actually doing. It will cause you to trust in something bigger than yourself. It will cause you to let go of security to go into the unknown. And when you are aligning yourself to the things, the purposes, the places that you're actually supposed to go into, it's not as smooth sailing as I'm making it out to be. It isn't smooth sailing. Most of the time it's challenging, most of the time it's frustrating, most of the time it actually causes you to lose so much. But the only reason why alignment is frustrating, the only reason why it is challenging is because that is course correcting your steps. When you have been going down the wrong road for a long time, it's going to take you a while to reroute yourself. Just for an example, I remember going on the motorway. I missed my exit. And the next exit, I thought that it would be another 10 minutes. But the next exit actually took me another half an hour to come out. But then I had to go round and find other, side roads and all of that just to actually get to the other side of the motorway. And to get to my destination took me like another hour to actually get there. And it was that whole, and if anybody's actually driven on a motorway, it is so frustrating. Nobody wants to miss their exit because to reroute yourself is long and it's annoying. But that's the reason why aligning yourself can seem as if it's frustrating and challenging, is because that is rerouting your steps. It's re-establishing where you're supposed to go. I feel as if like with society, it promises you more, but it lures you in. It gives you all of the benefits, but it never gives you the downside of it. It tells you all of the things that you can have, all of the things that you can achieve, but it will never tell you the things in which you have to let go, or the things that you're gonna lose, or the sleepless nights, the not feeling fulfilled, the lack of peace. It never tells you that. It lures you in so you can keep on being on this rat race. But with alignment, it will tell you from the jump, hey, we're gonna lose a couple of people. It's gonna be frustrating. It's going to be annoying. With alignment, you have to be so intentional about the steps in which you're taking. Every single step that you're taking, it will stop you and say, hey, do you want to continue? Do you want to take the next step? And I've noticed that in my own life, whenever I'm going through the motion, whenever I'm trying to do what my parents say, my friends say, society says, it's quick. I'm just going at it blindly. Next job, next career, next salary, next partner, and there's not much thought to it. But when I'm being aligned, it's really frustrating because I really have to sit down and be like, do I really want to do this? Oh my gosh, it's been so frustrating, but am I going to I like where I'm going, but I'm just so scared. I have to face my fears while I'm being aligned. And for so many of us, that's what I mean by the lack of humility. It's the lack of, that we have to lean upon something else. So for me, when God called me to even start this YouTube, I'm just like, I don't want to do this YouTube. Like, I don't like being seen, I don't like being heard. Like, I work in this career, I've done this and I've done that, and you want me to go and do YouTube. But I had to lean on God's wisdom. I had to lean on the fact that God knows what he's doing and what he's saying. I am a control freak, I'm an A type of babe, but I have to lean on the fact that God knows more than me. I can't lie on my security. I can't lean on the things in which I used to have. I have to lean on his understanding and his ways. And for many of us, even if you don't believe in God, you have to lean on that internal instinct. You have to lean on that internal gut feeling that you don't have all of the answers. It might look very different to the path in which you are now, but are you still going to take the route to being aligned? So we have done chapter 1 and we have done chapter 2, and on to chapter 3. And on to the good part. How do we actually start aligning ourselves to who we are and what we actually are supposed to do? So step number 1, pause and reflect. Everybody is in a rush. Everybody's trying to close gaps. Everybody's trying to do the most. But this is not the time to be chasing anything or doing anything. Actually, what we should be doing is we need to actually stop everything that we're doing and lean back. Pause and lean back so you can actually reflect on the whole year. Ask yourself questions. Have I been going a direction in which I want to? Do I really want to do what I have been currently doing? If I have been going in the right direction, how can I do more of that next year? How can I fit alignment into my life? Because this is the disclaimer, guys. I'm not trying to say that having a job that pays a certain amount of money is bad. Being in a relationship is bad. Doing certain things is bad. It's the intentionality behind it. And let's be real, we are in real life. You need to make money. We need to go and pay bills. This is not I'm not trying to say in this conversation, oh my gosh, you're working in finance, but realistically you should be a music producer. Quit your day job and start producing. Honey, you need money. But what can we do in our actual current lives? How can we actually create more space for alignment? How can we actually create our space to do the things in which we're supposed to do? And when we don't take the time out to find out where we are currently at, then we don't know how to do that. Number 2, what are your core values? When you do take the time out to pause and reflect, actually ask yourself, what are your core values? So what your core values may look like is a few things that may pop up is actually you value creativity, you value freedom, you value connection, or you value time freedom. Time freedom doesn't necessarily mean that you won't work in corporate. It doesn't mean that you're not going to work a 9 to 5. It may look like, oh, I might have to find a career that's going to allow me to work remotely. I may have to find a job that will allow me to travel a lot more. That's what it might look like. You might find out that your core value is creativity. So it's just like, okay, then, well, I work a 9 to 5, but maybe I might go from IT to working in design, to working in music, to working as a painter, whatever that is. When you take the time out to reflect, ask yourselves, what do I actually value? What do I actually want? Because we might be craving what other people are doing, what Sally's doing, what Naja's doing, what Sandra is doing. But when we really take the time out, actually, we don't want what they're doing. We actually want is of value to us. I'm going to put a link below. It's a downloadable sheet that looks at all of the different values that may come up for you. And you can just take the time out and just literally go through the sheet and tick what comes up for you and what resonates with you. And that will actually help you to narrow down what's actually important to you to help you to implement that in 2025. Number 3, learn to sit down with discomfort. So like I was saying, so many of us are not used to sitting with ourselves, asking ourselves questions. We don't allow ourselves to sit down with uncomfortable feelings. We don't want to feel as if we have failed. We don't want to feel as if we've wasted time. We don't want to feel as if we are unhappy, and we can easily distract ourselves. We go on Instagram, we scroll, like literally we just scroll. We go on the TikTok app and we just look at another video. We go on YouTube and watch 17 videos for the day. We go online and we just shop, and we can just impulse shopping because we're trying to ignore this feeling, whatever feeling it may come up for you. We're just trying to ignore it. Maybe we go out with friends a lot because we don't want to find out what are those uncomfortable feelings are actually telling us. But uncomfortable feelings ain't a bad thing. those uncomfortable feelings are trying to alert you. They're trying to tell you something. They're trying to redirect you. But then when we don't sit with boredom, when we don't sit with jealousy, when we don't sit with envy, when we don't sit with sadness, we miss the cues, and so we miss the direction in which it's trying to give us to change route. And so we need to get comfortable with sitting with those discomfort, because the discomfortable feelings is not trying to shame us. And I think for a lot of us, whenever we feel bad, we feel shame. We attach it to shame, and so we don't want to feel those things. But in reality, those uncomfortable feelings ain't trying to shame you. They're trying to teach you. They're trying to warn you. They're trying to love you. They're trying to show you where you should go and what you should do next. Number 4, set intentional goals. We need to get to the point where we shift our focus to what looks good and to what actually feels good. So for so many of us, we might be in relationships and situations, we may have friendship groups, we might be doing activities, we might have a certain lifestyle. So it looks good, but it doesn't feel good to you. And I've talked a lot about like career and relationships, but I haven't actually touched on even lifestyle. So for a long time, I've always associated myself to drinking. Like I'm a wine girl, I love a glass of wine when I go out. But lately, I've noticed that wine just does not feel good to me anymore. It does something to my body. It makes me feel weird. Like I can have like 2 sips of wine and it just makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I had to finally admit to myself that I don't think my body likes wine. I don't at the moment. I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know when it suddenly made the switch. But I had to come to the reality, and I had to admit to myself that I'm just not a wine girl anymore. And that might seem very trivial, but sometimes it's the little things that we don't pay attention to that actually we should be changing. And I think that sometimes we think to ourselves, we should be focusing on the big thing, but it's actually everything about our lives. So it's am I doing that activity because it looks, impressive? Like, oh my gosh, I play this sport or whatever, but you don't like it. Oh, I play football with the guys on the weekends, but you don't like it. You probably like to maybe do photography on the weekends. Or if you're a girl, like, oh my gosh, I love the whole brunch thing and going out every Saturday, but maybe for you that's not it anymore. Maybe you want to go to an art gallery on the weekend. Maybe you want to actually do more activity based, but whatever it is, start to shift from what looks good to what feels good to you. The focus is on you, what feels good for you. When I think about setting intentional goals, it reminds me of food. So many of us are hungry, and when we are hungry, have you ever tried going shopping when you're hungry? You walk past the cookie aisle, like you walk past the croissants and the chocolate aisle and the bakery and all of that jazz, and you have temptation, you have this serious temptation to just pick up a biscuit or cookie, and so you do, and you love it. In that moment, it is nice, it is soft, it is warm, like it satisfies you, but you're only satisfied for like half an hour. Within an hour, you're going to be hungry again. It gets to the point where you're going to have to actually eat real food. You're going to have to go and eat protein, some veg, some meat, some fiber to actually nourish you. You need something that's going to sustain you for the long run. All of that quick fix is exactly what it is. Cookies, croissants, cakes, they're quick fixes. They're only going to give you satisfaction for 10 minutes. But in the long run, it causes you so much more consequences. You gain weight, you gain addiction, you start to develop, digestive issues, health issues. But if you eat whole food, you get stronger, you get leaner, you get healthier, you have more energy. And so many of us are chasing things that are giving us quick fixes, the validation, the praise, the applauses. But in the long run, we're losing our self-esteem. We're not walking in alignment. We're unhappy. We're suffering We're suffering emotionally, physically, mentally. But we're not noticing it because we look good. Forget about the whole looking good. Plant things. Think of it as seeds. Plant things in your garden that doesn't only look pretty, but actually nourishes the ground, the soil in your actual garden. And number 5, unplug from the noise. Like seriously, especially in this day and age where we are social media crazy. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Even WhatsApp is like another Snapchat nowadays. It's like another Instagram. It's all doing the same thing with channels and all of that jazz. But it's just like you have to get to the point where you unplug from all of the noise. So many of us don't even get a chance. We don't even give ourselves a chance to unplug, to pause, to sit with ourselves because we are constantly connected to social media. I've realized that even in my own life, there's so many things that I've been able to, that has just easily been swept away, or it's been easily healed only because I shut such social media. So I did an experiment and last month where it wasn't even an intentional experiment actually, I mean not lie. I had to delete I had to delete Instagram because I didn't have any space on my phone anymore. Ooh. And I didn't have it for like 3 to 4 weeks. But when I came back on it, I interacted with the way that I interacted on social media was a lot more different. I didn't seem to care what anybody else was doing. And I think that for some of us, we're so bombarded of what everyone else is doing. Like I said, all the trips that Nadia's going to, all the trips that Daniela's going to, the job that Sandra has, the fiance that Stacey has. And we believe that we want those things because we see 200 of it a day. We see 400 examples a day. But if we really took the time out to sit with ourselves and unplug, we realize that we don't even want those things. Yes, it's constantly bombarded to us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you want it. Sometimes our perceptions are formed because of what we're connected to. Sometimes we feel a particular way because of what we actually see. But the more that you take away the noise, the outside dialogues and the outside opinions, you can then start to sit with your own emotions and actually come to realize what you want to do. Unplugging from all the noise, it doesn't always mean social media. It can mean unplug from the noise from your family, from your friends. Schedule alone time, schedule staycations with just you, schedule time with just you and God. Have a weekend where you're going to put your phone on do not disturb. I love a good not disturb button, honestly, where you don't have people just calling you up, asking you questions. Limit people's access to you so then you can focus on what really matters to you. And I'm going to end the video with talking about the benefits of aligning yourself. So when you start chasing things and you actually start aligning, you create a life which is rich, that feels abundant, that feels fulfilling. Even if the world looks at you and says that you are lacking in any particular way, you know that you are so full and you're full of what truly matters. So if this video resonates with you, again, why don't you like, subscribe and comment, share within the comment box on what you'll be letting go of before the end of 2024 and what you'll be picking up in 2025. Share any tips that you are doing, any ways in which you are letting go of, because just like I said, it's all about community here. So again, I will see you in the next video. Bye.